I'd like to talk a little bit more about pruning and trimming and training tomato plants, especially since this year I'm seeing some signs of disease pressure increasing already. And we've had an early spring, really, a lot of warm weather, but we've had some, hot and cold shifts that's caused some problems. But I do believe that in these years that we have early springs like this, that the disease pressure with the blights can be fairly heavy. So I'd like to teach you a little bit about how the garden managing your plants can help reduce the disease pressures. Now, first of all, I always try to keep my deck clear. And you can see already I'm seeing some signs, things I don't like to see. So I'll remove anything that I don't like to see. And I don't like to have any branches low like you see here, so I'll remove these suckers. I'll clear everything up to about here for now, and I'll get some space from the damp soil because the humidity down here creates a microclimate. And a microclimate is where humidity and standing air is sitting, and that is where disease will begin. And as the plant gets bigger and you start having more branches and more foliage, then the microclimates will tend to be in the center of the plant. And that's also where you'll see after heavy rains, when the temperatures are around the 70s, you'll see an explosion of blight. So you keep the airflow going through the plant. When I first began this market garden journey, I was consulting with the extension service at, the Department of Agriculture in Little Rock. And I spoke with the expert about blight here in Arkansas. And she talked about how it's one thing to grow tomatoes out in a field here where there's a lot of airflow, and it's another thing to grow tomatoes in someone's backyard where there's not a lot of airflow. And that's where blight really is a problem, where they can possibly get by out in a field. Now, I've tried using the copper sulfate, and she didn't recommend using that very often because it builds up a toxicity in your soil. And it's really just not good to be using that kind of thing. I'm just telling you, but she said don't use it more than twice a year. Well, that's not going to help you in a really bad blight season, and it never really helped me anyway, by the way. And then we can talk about malathion, and that's a synthetic. That's a pesticide. Excuse me, losing my breath a little. Well, I've tried using that too one year when I was desperate, and it didn't stop it either. And it's why? Because once you have a niche in your nutritional armor and you have low airflow, then there's not a whole lot you're going to do with interventions, right? It's just, it's like a fool's game. So you got to keep your nutrition up. You got to have a lot of good airflow. That's why pruning and training and trimming your tomato plants and keeping a canopy that allows air flowing through it is so important to disease prevention. And that's the second most important thing next to nutrition. And if you keep your nutrition up and you learn how to smooth in those nutritional kinks that happen, like when heavy rains and in different conditions like dry spells, then you can help stave off that blight as long as you can. Now, in a really bad year where we have like it could be this year, it's happened a couple years ago where everybody was having trouble with their tomatoes that year because the blight just took over. Blight was king that year. And that can happen, and you just have to work through those years because they come and go. And I also have noticed that a lot of times when you have that heavy problem with blight in the spring, then you can get by with planting a second crop in the midsummer or the fall garden, and you can do well all the way up to frost because you have less disease pressure in the last half of the season. So there's a few things about it, and then I will show you what it looks like when I have my tomato plants out here already. This is the early pruning. I'll continue to show you pruning and training as we move through the season. I think this looks pretty good. I can show you what I've done. You see I've cleared the deck. I've removed any branches / suckers that are low. Right, we don't need them down there. We'll have all the suckers we need up top. I removed any leaves that looked like they were too damaged or unhealthy. You always want to get rid of that. That saps energy anyway and just draws in more disease. I tied up my branches, and when I did, I was careful not to pinch any leaves or any plant material in it because that will die and that will be a source of disease at that dying off point. I think that's pretty much it. I think you can see what I've got done here. Oh wait, I remove anything dead or dying so I don't leave that laying in there. And I've minimized my microclimates, my humid spots down low. There's no leaves hanging down into that. And we don't have to worry too much about microclimates in the center yet, as I was talking about. But we will soon enough, and then I'll teach you about that. Thank you for watching.